Hello and welcome back to Let's Eat. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make 3 of the easiest and tastiest holiday treats around. You guys know that it's that time of year and we've got holiday parties, we have family parties. You can have a party by yourself and you can just eat this if you want to. I promise you guys are going to absolutely love these treats. I'm going to go ahead and start with the peanut butter candy. This is something that I grew up with. This is something that my grandmother taught me how to make, and it has just been an all-time family favorite all year round, but especially around Christmas. A lot of people will call this peanut butter fudge, but we have always called it peanut butter candy. I've also seen people making this with just peanut butter and a little can of frosting. It's just not the same for me. I love to make it this way personally. Now, if sugar is not your friend, then this will not be either. You're going to go ahead and combine 3 cups of sugar, 3/4 cups of butter, 5 ounces of evaporated milk, 1.5 cups of peanut butter, 7 ounces of the marshmallow fluff, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You're going to go ahead and boil your sugar, butter, and milk, and make sure you stir that constantly. Do not step away from it. It will be a huge mistake. That is one thing my grandmother always told me. Just make sure you keep this stirring. You're going to do this for about 4 minutes. Once this gets to a boil, you will remove it from the heat and then go ahead and stir in your peanut butter, your fluff, and your vanilla. And then you're just going to pour it out into a pan and let that set up. Depending on how thick or thin you want your fudge, you can do a smaller glass dish like an 8x8, or you can do, an 11x13, 10x13, however you want to do it. It's just going to, pretty much depend on how thick or thin you want your fudge. And this won't take long for it to set up. I know that I have made this a handful of times where it did not come out right, and it was either the temperature that I had it on or something of that nature. If you have never made this before and you're trying it for the first time and it doesn't come out quite right, don't get discouraged. I promise you it's not that hard. I sometimes just don't pay attention, but you really need to have this like on a medium to high heat, and definitely don't step away from it. Just make sure you keep stirring it and it's going to be perfect. I promise you, you are really going to enjoy this. If you like peanut butter, this is hands down one of my favorite peanut butter treats. Also, one thing that I like to do is spray my bowl, my pot, and my spoon all with cooking spray. That way, none of that peanut butter or the fluff will stick to it. But of course, the day that I decide to film this for you guys, I forgot to do that. So I was struggling just a little bit. Also, if you don't get all of the marshmallow fluff mixed in, if you've got just little tiny bits and pieces of it that haven't quite mixed in with the peanut butter, that's okay. It's going to be like a beautiful swirly goodness, and you're just going to get that little surprise of extra. Really hard for me to try to get this poured in here without knocking my camera over, but this is about the consistency that you want this to be in, and once you see it like this, you know that it's going to set up pretty good. I promise you guys, I could just sit here and eat this with a spoon, like just before it even cools down. I'm not even going to wait for it to set up and let me cut a little piece of it. It is just so delicious. This is one of my absolute favorite things to do around the holidays, and it just doesn't have to be for Christmas. You can do this anytime you want. I've also thought about letting this set up and then putting a thin layer of melted chocolate on top just to kind of have like a little homemade Reese cup. I haven't tried it yet, but if you guys have, let me know how that turned out. I would love to try that in the near future, like the absolute near future. I think it would be just amazing. Next, we're going to go ahead and make these Ritz Thin Mints. Oh my gosh, I've only made these one other time, and it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I don't know why, but I completely forgot about them. So all you need is Ritz crackers, and this recipe actually calls for Andes mints, but again, it's the holidays and those are very hard to find right now. So I just went ahead and grabbed those chocolate mint fudge chips from Walmart, and they are exactly the same, and they're actually cheaper and much easier to find. So depending on how many of these you want to make, you can melt 1 bag of those chips and probably get maybe a whole sleeve of Ritz crackers out of that, depending on how thick or thin you get your chocolate layer. But it is super simple. All you need to do is melt your chocolates, do it in like 20-second increments in your microwave, or if you have a melt button on your microwave. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't have that. But do it about every 20 seconds, 15 seconds. Make sure you're stirring in between. Make sure you don't burn that chocolate, because then you're going to be very, very sad. And then you just take your Ritz crackers and you dunk them in. I will say though, I don't know why I decided to put these on this little cooling tray. I thought that I would catch the drips and it would be much more easier. It was not, because once they set up and dried and I tried to get these off the cooling tray, it just took all that chocolate off of the bottom. So for future reference, just go ahead and lay these out on some wax paper or some parchment paper, and then once they cool and set up, they'll just pop right off and be perfect. You can also decorate these any fun way you want to. These are the only two little decorating sprinkles that I had. I had gold and red, so I just did a row of gold, a row of red, and then I just left another just plain. These are magnificent. Last but not least, we are going to go ahead and make some Christmas white trash. This is so much fun to make, and it is so good too. There are so many different ways that you can make this, but this is just the version that I do. I went ahead and started with 3 cups of the white Chex Mix, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some peanuts. Now, I love this recipe because you can just make it however you want. If you want a lot of peanuts, put in a lot of peanuts. If you don't want a lot, don't put a lot. If you don't want them at all, don't put them in there at all. A lot of people will use pretzels, and that's very good with this recipe as well. A lot of people use other types of cereal. You can use Chex, and you can also use Cheerios along with that. The way that I like to spice this up for the holidays is to add some red and green M&Ms. It gives it that chocolatey flavor with that as well. This is just like a very sweet and salty treat, and I absolutely love, love, love this. The reason this is called white trash is because of the color of the frosting that you're going to use. And it's not really frosting. You can use like white chocolate chip melts, or you can use almond bark, which is what I decided to do. You're going to go ahead and use this whole thing if you're going to use the almond bark, because you need a lot to coat all of this stuff. When you melt this, make sure it's very runny consistency, just like this. That way you can work with it a lot easier. I will say the easiest way to do it, and of course it isn't the way that I showed you guys, if you've got gloves, you can go ahead and just get your hands in there and get this all tossed together. That way you can ensure that every piece of this is coated, or you can use a spoon. Either way, just make sure that you get all of these pieces coated. And the trash part is going to come from, you can put anything that you want to into this. You can really just make this your own, and you can add anything that you want to as well. If you want to add sprinkles to this after you get it poured out, add sprinkles. You can just really jazz it up and make it fun for the whole family to enjoy. But once you get everything coated, you're going to go ahead and make sure that you've got out some wax paper or parchment paper laid out, and then you will just dump all of this out. Now you can do this in little piles, like if you want little individual stacks of this candy, or you can just lay it all out flat. Make sure that you get it, kind of as flat as you can, so it's going to be a lot easier for it to dry and set up. And then once it's set up, you can just break it apart, kind of like you would some bark, and then you can eat it that way. You can give all of these things as gifts. I personally love giving homemade treats as gifts, and every time that I give some to somebody, they're always very grateful. Another good idea would be to break up some candy canes. That way it would give it a little bit of a mint flavor, and you would have those red and white colors in there to make it a little bit more festive as well. Again, you can just make this any kind of way that you want to. It's just so much fun to get in the kitchen and make these treats during the holidays. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you try any of these, please don't forget to let me know. Of course, all of the information to these recipes will be in the description box. Make sure to go and check that out. But thank you so much for coming and watching today. I hope to see you back for the next one. Thank you so much for being here. Happy holidays.